Hey guys, welcome to today's video where we're chasing some big old bass in Louisiana for the Catch 22 challenge. There he is. That would have been like 2 fish real fast. Dang it. Dang it, dang it. And he freaking smoked it. Fish on. That's a toad, brother. Golly. There was a bigger one that was on the bank. Oh, there he is. See him swimming right there? All right, guys, so check this out. I want to show you how I develop a pattern in early spring fishing around cypress trees. If you notice on the first cast, I cast out to the end of the shadow. On the next cast, I'm going to skip it under the cypress about midway of the shadow, as I did right there, and I'm going to move it a little closer to the trunk as I pass it. On this next cast, you'll notice that I hit this tree square on, and then I let it fall to where it slides down the trunk. So for the most part, I'm fishing it like a jig. We'll talk more about that in just a second. There he is. Oh yeah, guys. I've only been here a minute and already got a good fish. Look at this. I skipped that right up against the bank of that cypress, and he freaking smoked it. Look at that. Look at that thing. Man, that's why you get out in the springtime, right? Look at that thing right there, son. All right, let's get this thing back in the water. Yeah, buddy. So guys, the way I caught that fish is one of my favorite ways to fish around cypress trees. To throw a jackhammer and skip it into the trunk, and when it hits the trunk, just let it fall. So the first half of the retrieve, you're basically fishing a jig. And then once it sits there for a second, you raise it up, give it a brr, and then slow reel it out of there. You'll catch them on the fall, you'll catch them on the sit, you'll catch them on the rip, and you'll catch them on the pull away. So it's a really effective way to fish cypress trees, especially early season. And I'll show you the setup I got going on in just a second. But it's also dependent on using a buoyant trailer, in my opinion. You could get away with pretty much any trailer, and I fish a jackhammer with the Yamamoto Zako 85–90% of the time. But when I'm flipping it and pitching it like a jig, I go to a goat, a billy goat, and or a billy goat, and I cut it down a little bit, or sometimes I leave it whole so that way it stands up when it's sitting on bottom. So if I plan on bottom fishing it, now don't get me wrong, I will bottom fish it rigged anyway a lot of times and catch them. But if I plan on doing it that way, if it's a big part of my presentation, then I will go with the Z-Man goat or billy goat, depending on how big I want the profile of the bait to be. Usually I fish it smaller earlier and bigger later, meaning smaller earlier in the season and bigger later in the season. Bigger when I'm fishing it around grass, you know, again, when they're more in their summer patterns. Early on, when the crawfish are first coming out of the ground and the brim are a little small, bluegill a little smaller, I will fish it compact. That's just me. I don't know that there's any real 100%, you know, validity to that, but it's something that I've dialed in over the years to work for me. And you know, when something works for you, it works for you. When you're fishing around milfoil between these isolated cypress, don't be afraid to just cast out in what looks like open water either, because a lot of times the knees will be 20–30 feet out away from the tree, and when the knees from one tree intersect with the knees from another tree, you'll get a little cluster, and man, they will jump on that sometimes. So, you know, just don't be afraid to let it sit like I'm doing right now inadvertently, because I got a little professional overrun right here that I got to deal with. There we go. It's called a professional overrun because if you get it out real quick like that, even though you had a bad cast, you are professional. And with a good pair of polarized glasses, you can see these clumps of milfoil, and a lot of times when the buck moves up on the tree to start to guard, the female will be staging nearby, and sometimes the only thing they have to stage on is those big clumps of grass. So if you slow roll a chatterbait past a big clump of milfoil in shallow water in the spring, are you kidding me? You better have your hammer cocked. Be ready to get your arm broke. Time to put the hood on, man. Got a little sun on my neck. Your boy right here forgot it was sunny out and didn't put on his Sawyer. So he gonna throw on that hoodie. But I still should have Sawyer on my hands and on my face. But I'm only out here for like an hour and a half, 2 hours today, so it ain't as bad. But if you're gonna be outside with your skin exposed, they get some of that Sawyer, yo. Sawyer. Magnificent. Guys, be careful when you do this right here, especially down in the south. I know these jackhammers is $17 in some places and then more than that in others, but I will tell you, you run a really good risk of ending up with a snake in your lap or a hornet in your neck getting up in these thick cypress like this. But, you know, your boy got to get his jackhammer out. Cool, man.
Sounds good.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate you. All right, have a good week. Bye. All right, guys, so while I'm motoring over to the spot, let's talk about color selection. If you notice how dark the water is and how muddy it is, that's the reason that I chose to go with the Fire Crawl, which is basically a dark brown green pumpkin with some red on the belly and a watermelon red trailer, so it'll contrast better in that dark stained water. Oh, here we go. GoPro, start recording. All right, guys, I didn't have the camera rolling because I was on the phone and I just flipped a cast up to that cypress tree and hooked this dude. Oh, yeah, oh, that's a good fish, guys. I'm trying to get it around to this side for the camera. Look at that dude. So I had to do a conference call real quick. So I turned the cameras off and I just flipped up to that little cypress right there in the same layout as where the last fish was, basically on the shady corner right on the edge of the sun line. Threw up there, let it fall to the bottom. As soon as it hit the bottom, I let it sit for a 5 count. I twitched it and then started reeling it, and she already had it when I started reeling it. So all right, another one released, baby. And I'm gonna ease on back in here in some shallow water between the trees. Even though I was just talking about the isolated trees, I've thrown into quite a few isolated trees and haven't gotten a bite now. So I'm gonna work back in here and get into some of this shallow water that I think most of the boats are overlooking. And it's on the right side of the lake for any phase of the spawn. So I'm gonna give it a shot. Oh boy, that bank shot up in there, up under the tree. One thing I've also figured out over the years, and I don't know why it is, because it seems like it would be the opposite. So it's what we like to refer to as counterintuitive, is the trees that have all this grass around them usually don't seem to be the ones that have the fish on them. It's usually the ones that are a little cleaner, a little more naked. And that's weird because I've punched those trees, I've flipped them, the ones that have the grass on them. I just haven't had as much luck for whatever reason on those type of trees. So for whatever that's worth to you, the naked trees, for one, don't overlook them, but I have a tendency to catch more and better fish on the naked trees, to be honest with you. I think it might be because those trees are cleaner for spawning, and maybe those trees with the trash on them when they need the shade a little later in the summer might produce a little better. But I also haven't found that to be true. Just again, just a theory. in that net. Another pretty little chunk right there. He freaking smoked that chatterbait, son. Okay, let's get this guy measured and released. All right, another one released, baby. We're gonna ease over that way, and I'm gonna see if I can get him on the camera behind me as he jumps off of. Wait a minute, I'll just turn this camera around. What am I talking about? Let's just turn this camera around. Like, I'll just narrate from back here. Y'all see that little gator right there on that log? Let's see if he'll stay there until we get a little closer. Don't be shy. He doesn't think we see him. He's on the log and he's like, that water's cold. I don't want to go back in. Sir, don't make me go back in that water, please. Y'all see him right there? On that log. Right yonder? Let's see if we can just go right by him and he don't act like we're not even here. Hi, Mr. Gator. Hi there, Mr. Gator. Oh, he hopped off the log. He hopped it off. All right, so after seeing that gator, I had another cool experience meeting Dan from Wyoming on the water. Good, had any luck?
Pretty good.
Yeah, me too.
Flipping bushes and stuff.
Dude, I've hit the front side of isolated trees and caught 3. The smallest one was 3.5. It was literally 3.5, 4.5, 5.5. It's crazy.
Yeah, where I've been doing is the shaded areas.
Yeah, the shaded side, but I have found them on those isolated trees out front.
Aren't you Chad Hoover?
Yeah.
Good man.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. What's your name?
Dan.
Dan?
To this.
Where do you fish in Wyoming?
I do a lot of bass. I think I'm the only bass fisherman in Wyoming.
Nice.
A lot of them are walleye guys. So.
Is it good fishing for bass up there?
Oh,
really?
yes. My biggest one so far was 6 3/4, and I'm trying to break that right now.
Do you have your phone on you?
I do.
Hey, I'll give you my number. I'm doing this thing called the Catch 22 Challenge.
Okay.
When I go west, I wouldn't mind if you don't mind getting some advice from you on where to go for Wyoming bass. All right, so after exchanging information with Dan, and I'm going to connect with him and go fishing later, ran into a couple of really big gators, actually a few big gators in the back of this lake. Check them out. So there was a bigger one that was on the bank. Oh, there he is. See him swimming right there? Right there. And there's the little one. So that big one in the water right there is the female, and that little one is the male. Because that's how they, oh look, and there's another one right here. And I've rolled up into Gator Central right here. This is the warm side where I come to look for the bass to spawn. And of course, that's also where the gators are. So there is one big one swimming right. So there was a bigger one that was on the bank. Oh, there he is. See him swimming right there? Right there. And there's the little one. So that big one in the water right there is the female, and that little one is the male. Because that's how they, oh look, and there's another one right here. And I've rolled up into Gator Central right here. This is the warm side where I come to look for the bass to spawn. And of course, that's also where the gators are. So there is one big one swimming right there. There's another big one up there on the bank right there. And then there's another big one swimming right there. We got some big old lizards down here in Louisiana for you. But don't worry, they only like Yankee meat. I'm just kidding you. They don't really like Yankee meat. Who likes Yankee meat?